Good afternoon, everybody. David Shuster here on Take Action News, our March 23rd weekend edition. So glad to have you on board for our third and final hour of the program. Joining us for the first 6 minutes here, a special for all of our Washington, D.C. listeners, Alan Rosenblatt, Dr. Digipole on Twitter. Alan, how's the weekend going?
So far, so good. How about yours?
It's going pretty well. You know, Alan, I was struck by there was it seems like we see these stories all the time, but there was a kid who was shot accidentally in a suburban Virginia basement in our audience. Another one of these accidents where kids are either playing with guns or don't realize a gun is loaded. What do you make of this particular type of issue now at a time when are we just more sensitive to it because of the gun control debate, or is this just something that's just part of our fabric now?
You know, I definitely think that the gun control debate has made us much more sensitive to it. You have to think that these kinds of terrible things, unfortunately, happen way too often, and we really don't hear much about it. There is some discrepancy in many cases between, coverage of these killings based on race of the victim and location and. There have been hundreds and hundreds of murders, gun violence murders in Chicago, and we haven't really talked about individual victims at all in that process. So I think that the gun debate that has erupted since Newtown is really focused our attention on it. Now, this has happened before in past situations where there have been gun violence and mass killings, and there's been a temporary focus on it. But unlike those times, there's been a lot more focus in Congress on it. The Democrats stayed away from gun control throughout the first term of Obama's administration, and of course the Republicans always stay away from it. And I think now that in the second session or second term, not only because of the tragedy, but also because of some of the political freedoms that occur as a result of being a second-term president, there's more political opportunity to discuss it, and therefore more media attention to it.
I want to ask you a little bit, Alan, about some of social media and how that's been playing out in terms of the gun debate. There was a lot of attention this past week when Harry Reid, and we were talking about this earlier with Cliff Schechter, Harry Reid announced that in order to make sure that the underlying gun control bill is not torpedoed by things that cannot get 60 votes, he was going to be separating out the ban on assault weapons, the ban on high-capacity magazine clips. There will still be votes on them as amendments, but it essentially dooms those particular proposals in order to try to protect the idea that the background checks and gun trafficking legislation would actually be able to make it through. Was there much of a dust-up on Twitter and on social media over that decision?
There's always pushback on things like that from the far left, saying, backing down. Harry Reid's certainly been the focus of a lot of far-left criticism on Twitter because of, he comes from a gun state. He's been very pro-gun over the years. The problem or the challenge, I think, in general is that the role Harry Reid plays in the Senate is one of, he's the guy that makes the trains run. He's the guy that makes the bills pass. And he doesn't bring bills up to vote that he knows won't get the votes to pass because it's just a waste of time and better spent trying to figure out a bill that will get passed. As a result, he's gotten slammed from both sides. I mean, you just look at the history of the whole budget resolution situation. The left, the right is slamming him on that for not bringing up budgets to vote, and then on this, he's not being strong enough on gun control. So the left is upset, and that's the nature of the game. When you're the master compromiser, nobody likes you.
We're talking with Alan Rosenblatt, Dr. Digipole, and social media. In about a minute and 45 seconds, we're going to pause and let our syndicated stations catch up with us. And then we've got a very special social media segment coming up. But Alan, it was so interesting to see, as Harry Reid was trying to respond to some of the criticism from the left, I noticed that he's doing a much more effective job now of putting out messages on Twitter that he'll actually announce the news that, I'm not going to allow a bill to get to the Senate floor unless it does contain background checks. So he's trying to sort of make up some ground there. And so interesting to see even Harry Reid or his office using Twitter to try to get the message out.
Well, Harry Reid's office has been very good at using Twitter for quite some time. He has a dedicated staff person working on his Twitter account, and she's she manages it, and she rallies people on the Democratic caucus to retweet things as well. And I've met with her several times, and she's very, very capable and has really focused on making sure that Senator Reid's Twitter channel is valuable, that it talks about policy, that it talks about strategy, that it talks about, things that people need to hear, as opposed to a lot of members of Congress who simply tweet, their schedule and tweet, met this person or went to this place, and they don't ever tell you what they talked about or what they think about an issue.
Indeed. We're talking with Alan Rosenblatt. We're going to pause in 20 seconds, letting our syndicated stations catch up with us. Reminder, folks, you can always catch us on our YouTube channel, Take Action News TV, and be sure to sign up for our podcast on Stitcher or on iTunes. So glad to have all of you with us. We pause now in about 5 seconds for our syndicated stations. You're listening and you're watching to Take Action News on We Act Radio.